thank you to all the speakers here. I would like to first mention that BW Businessworld is committed to create a permanent platform between the Republic of India and Uzbekistan for the businesses to flourish. So here is another initiative that we are moving forward towards. I would request both the ambassadors of the Republic of Uzbekistan and India to join us and inaugurate the India-Uzbekistan Investment Corridor logo. This is a combined effort of BW Businessworld and Trust Legal. So I would request Ms. Simran Gupta, Associate from Trust Legal, to kindly share the logo here in the presence of His Excellency.
At this point, let me bring in the three healthcare professionals, entrepreneurs who've been waiting patiently. Let me first invite Mr. Kamal Solanki, who's the CEO of the Venkateshwar Group of Hospitals, and again Venkateshwar Group of Hospitals. Mr. Solanki and his team of healthcare leaders did their best during the last 8 weeks. I'm sure it was a very tough time, but they did the best they can, saved a lot of lives, and did interventions to save even more. But we had a certain situation. But kudos to you, Mr. Solanki, and your team at Venkateshwar in doing what you did. Brief comment from you in terms of what are the opportunities you see and your comments on the initiative.
Thanks, Anurag sir. A warm namaste to both His Excellency Mr. Akatov and Mr. Prabhat. Thank you for having me on this board of discussion. What I'd like to comment on, this partnership is that healthcare forms a very important component of any strategic partnership that comes up. What I would like to request you, because most of the institutions that have access to Uzbekistan, they generally have a quarterly camp or maybe a monthly camp. But patients in these countries, they would like to have regular access to super specialty care. So in case, we can have a tie-up with any institution in Uzbekistan where a formal desk or maybe a small office could be shared with the institution, where patients can have direct access during the day to all the super specialty care. And in case they need to travel, then we can have that corridor being created by both His Excellency. So that's just a comment that I'd like to make, and I would request Mr. Prabhat to just have a comment on that, on how we can go about this.
Thank you for bringing this interesting ideas. In fact, there have been partnerships in the past, and running partnership, operational partnership between Indian healthcare companies and Uzbek healthcare companies. I just gave an example of, one leading hospital from Gurgaon recently opening a joint venture in Samarkand. And similarly, with your company also, we can definitely find willing partners in Uzbekistan. These we receive such visitors, almost every week. So not only Tashkent, but also in the regions in Uzbekistan, there's a lot of demand for quality healthcare. And, of course, that means good machinery, advanced, instruments, qualified doctors and paramedics. So not that these things are not available in Uzbekistan, but you add value. I mean, from experience of India, which has a large healthcare industry, and experience of dealing with a variety of, treatments across board, basically, and more complicated cases. Similarly, organ transplants. A lot of Uzbek patients go to India, sometimes donors go together, these kinds of things. And I think that Uzbek government is very supportive of, opening such facilities here itself. So I'm sure that, there are partners in Uzbekistan. If you choose to come here, we would request the Uzbek government, I think Ambassador Akatov would also, help to find partners to have meetings with governors in the regions who are the people, first point of contact would direct you to, running hospitals, clinics where you can tie up, promote joint ventures, set up probably the building and an operational clinic and hospital is already available, and you join with your expertise. And then, promote, bring more instruments, bring Indian doctors and that kind of thing. And, increase the spectrum of facilities which are offered in that clinic. That way, you don't initially have to invest in building a space. You bring your expertise, and once you are comfortable and you think that you have established yourself, then of course you are free to advance, open more branches, etc. So on such models, Indian hospital healthcare industries are already functioning in Uzbekistan. So when you decide on that, please come here and we would fix good meetings.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ambassador.
Thanks for your comments, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. So the idea is to be able to move to implementation, to move beyond the discussions, to be able to be in an action mode and make things happen. Let me bring in Dr. D.K. Gupta, who's the CMD of Felix Hospital. Again, been very active in helping people and doing his duty as a healthcare professional and doctor. Dr. D.K. Gupta, your comments, and if there is something you'd like both the ambassadors to address. Dr. D.K. Gupta.
Thank you so much, BW and Trust Legal, for organizing such a great event, BW Global Dialogue, and His Excellency Manish Prabhatji, Ambassador of India to Uzbekistan, and His Excellency Mr. Dilshad Akhtar, Ambassador of Uzbekistan to India. I think we are one of the, there is a huge requirement of healthcare services right now in Uzbekistan. We have gone through the data of Uzbekistan, and I think they need quite good quality of services at their doorstep. And if it is not possible, then they can be shifted to India for their higher surgeries or tertiary or quaternary care treatment. The huge scope. And India is a great partner for all the global countries for providing medical tourism and providing best of the services in medical industry right now. And Felix, being one of the fastest growing hospital in Delhi and NCR, we are NABH and NABL accredited hospital, and we are having tertiary care facilities, including like all the surgical treatment we are having under one roof. Like it can be bariatric surgery, joint replacement, neurosurgery, spine surgery, head and neck surgery, onco surgery, all the laparoscopic surgery, gastro, GI surgery. We have all the facilities under one roof. And definitely we're looking forward to open one center in Uzbekistan so that we can screen patients there if they require any basic medication that can be provided there, or even secondary care can be provided there. And for tertiary and quaternary care, these patients can be shifted to India and Felix Hospital. That will be my humble submission. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gupta. Let me bring in Vikram Garu at this point. Again, congratulations to you. You won a global tender to be able to do dialysis services across the Republic of Uzbekistan. Tell us about the experience you had in terms of the process by which you were selected, and tell us what is the kind of impact it is likely to have in terms of NephroPlus providing the service that it's likely to. Vikram Garu?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me join this conversation. Firstly, we are excited about opening 4 centers in Uzbekistan. The construction of these 4 centers in Tashkent, Karakol, Pakistan and Furan region are already underway. We'll be launching them between Jan and March of 2022. The center, I have to say that the center in Tashkent will be the world's largest dialysis center with 160 beds. Just dialysis center with 160 beds. So it's coming up really well. I think the leadership of Uzbekistan will be there at the launch event. The tender process was extremely well done. IFC, which is a World Bank arm, was a transaction advisor, and we were NephroPlus was the only company present in this tender. There were several, about 8 European companies also who had expressed interest and who submitted the bids. But what I want to say is India is a developing country and so is Uzbekistan. And when NephroPlus has grown to become the largest dialysis network in India, the price point for dialysis is the lowest in the world. And in the constrained environment, when you grow with a lot of constraints but offer superior clinical outcomes, great service levels, then you build the best cost structure in the world. And we are very excited to outbid the world's largest dialysis networks to win this tender in a transparent global tender. And I think 1,200 dialysis patients in phase 1 will benefit from these 4 centers in the 3 regions of Uzbekistan. And this is just phase 1. We are very excited to expand in phase 2 and open in other regions as well once the phase 1 is underway. I don't know, many of the participants may not know that NephroPlus is the largest dialysis network in India. We run 260 centers across 160 cities in 23 states of India. We also run a small network in Philippines, and Uzbekistan is going to be the third country for us. So overall, very excited. I think my humble submission to Mr. Dilshad Akhto is if a single window clearance for licensing can be created for new Indian entities coming into Uzbekistan, I think that would be really helpful for us. Over the last 4-5 months, our team in Tashkent has been working very hard to gather licenses from various departments inside Uzbekistan. I think some sort of facilitation, single window would be very helpful to make the process even more smooth. We are very happy with the progress we have made. I think some support would be even more appreciated. Humble submission.
His Excellency Dr. Akhto, any comment? You may want to unmute and address this.
I would like to propose to Mr. Vuppala, let us meet. Let us discuss in details all our joint measures. What could we? Which kind of questions could we resolve? I know about this very important project. Thank you very much. I know your partner in Uzbekistan, Mr. Ulukbek Shamsibayev. If I'm not wrong. Very, very important, really, very sought after project. Let us meet.
Yes.
Let us discuss.
Look forward to that.
Thank you. Of course, the embassy is very open. The embassy is very ready to support.
Look forward to that. A small side comment would be, I never realized that Tashkent is just 3.5 hours from Delhi. And I think Uzbekistan and Indian governments, from a strategic relationship perspective, should really invest in promoting more tourism. Right now, the affluent population of India and the upper middle incomes population goes towards Asia, South Asia, from a vacation perspective. I think with the history of Samarkand, I think the humongous progress or humongous traffic can be pushed towards Uzbekistan. And once people-to-people relationships, when more people experience Uzbekistan, then the business also gets more smoother. More people would be aware. I've been very fortunate to travel to Tashkent and experience it, but surprisingly, many people in my business circle, in the family and friend circle, have never considered going to Uzbekistan, which is a fantastic country. So more awareness on the tourism sector would be very, very helpful from a strategic relationship perspective.
Thank you, Mr. Vuppala. At this point, we also have representatives from the tourism sector on the next panel that Niti will take. So I'd like to wrap up my panel. Thank Mr. Dr. Atul Chauhan, Dr. Kumar, Mr. Kamal Solanki, Mr. Vikram Vuppala, Mr. DK GUPTA for being here, and both the excellencies would request if you can stay here, and I'll tell Mr. Mishra to take the next panel again. It has service providers from the law firms, leading law firms of the Republic of Uzbekistan. It also has a travel service provider which has been in business for 4 decades. So we'll let them focus on that, and thank you for encouraging that. At the end, I have a conversation with Mr. Murari Jalan, who's set up a 5-star hotel in Samarkand. It's ready and about to be launched anytime. 5-star luxury. He's also doing 2 large cities, mini cities, very large real estate projects. He's been doing business in Uzbekistan the last 10 years, and as of today, he's invested more than $100 million in Uzbekistan. So really, we'll complete by a conversation between him and me. But at this point, I'd like to bring in Mr. Sudhir Mishra to take the next leg of the conversation and the dialogue forward. Over to you, Mr. Sudhir Mishra.
Thank you, Dr. Batra.
And
Thank you.
in order to save time, we have wrapped up the first panel faster. We'll do the same in the second panel as well. I have a very strong panel with, we'll go to the tourism part later, but first I will like to introduce our guests from Uzbekistan, and I will read them. Mr. Ilkhom is a senior partner in Azizov and Partners, and Mr. Nodir, partner in GRATA International, Mr. Sherzod, partner in Settle Law Firm. They all will be speaking on different issues, and we have divided the issues for them so that they can give us a glimpse of Uzbekistan legal regime. That is what the purpose is. So I will first invite Mr. Ilkhom to generally take us through the legal framework of their country. He is a very lucid speaker, and we had a very good conversation the other day. He will tell us about what is the legal regime and what is the general tax structure you are looking at. Like when you talk about Dubai, the tax thing comes first in mind. So when it comes to Tashkent, how do we say the tax comes in your mind? So can you give us a very brief glimpse?
Thank you for the invitation. I'm really proud for being invited to this extraordinary event, and thank you, Your Excellencies, and Mr. Sudhir Mishra. In brief, let me start with say a brief introduction of the legal system of Uzbekistan. So in brief, legal system of Uzbekistan has great level of similarity with the Russian legal system. We both ancestors of the Soviet system. Soviet system of law has been built on the background of German and French, a combination of German and French jurisdictions. We have quite a big level of similar norms in civil law sphere, which is the background for business. This is one of the main purposes of our visit today. So if we switch to a general system of legislation, the key normative act here in this country is the civil code for the business sphere. And then we have statutory laws that are introduced and adopted by the Parliament of Uzbekistan. At the third level, we have decrees and resolutions adopted by the president of the country. He's an official who heads executive say power in this country, although he's not part of the executive branch, because executive branch is actually the government represented by the cabinet of ministers, and it also adopts its own set of normative acts, which are called resolutions and orders. These are most important and regulatory, widely applied regulatory acts of bylaw level. And then thirdly, we have the third level of regulatory acts, those which are issued and adopted by administrative bodies. So in the past years, there was substantial switch in the trends and in the model of regulation of the economy. Now a new president insists that the regulatory policy shall be governed by basically statutory laws, those that are adopted by the parliament. And there would be less attention and less importance provided for, granted to sub-laws and bylaws and documents, regulatory documents that are issued by administrative bodies. So we would view and say experience in the next few years probably, as we call it, guillotine, cutting off of bylaws and increasing level of regulatory importance of statutory laws. So this is briefly how the system operates. From the point of importance of regulatory bodies, of course, we have law enforcement bodies and we have judiciary and we have legal system very similar to what you may see in continental systems, partly different from what you see in UK and other common law systems. But we also have courts, we have arbitration institutions, and courts do play important role. They divide into different branches. One of the important courts for the sphere of business is Economic Court of Uzbekistan. Interesting to note that Uzbekistan now reconsiders the system of legal sources. Historically, we used to rely mostly on written text, same as continental countries. But now there is more importance and understanding of non-written sources of customs and traditions, also legal precedents is spreading over. And recently there was in the fall of 2019, there was adopted decree by the president, one of the decrees devoted to development of regulatory background for one of the free economic zones in Uzbekistan. As you know, probably Uzbekistan is composed of 13 territorial districts, regions rather, and one of the regions which is comparably of the size of European governments in Eastern Europe, like Bulgaria or Hungary, which is Navoi region, one of the most industrially developed regions. And there was, for the first time, introduced permission for the Minister of Justice to examine a possibility of introduction of concepts and principles of English law to that free economic zone. And that has been started, but not implemented yet. And I fully agree with our excellencies and with the Honorable Mr. Prabhat and one of other speakers, Mr. C.J. Kumar, who told that these are areas where we can cooperate and say where English experts could assist Uzbekistan in developing principles of English law for, say, promotion and development and say modernization of our judicial system. Now for the tax, we basically has tax system composed of number of taxes. Of those, 5 or 6 corporate taxes are most important. The traditional is value-added tax, excise tax on imports, income tax, personal income tax. The rates for each of these taxes range between 10 and to 20%, and in rough for the business, the overall tax burden does not exceed 25 tax input. We also have system of say customs fees, where level of customs fees, those which are composed of excise import duties, VAT on imports, and tax fee, roughly may range from 0 to 20% depending on the type of goods that are imported to Uzbekistan. And in brief, the tax system operates in 2 ways. Like in any other country, we have a generic regime which is applied to all of the say taxpayers, and then there are special regimes. Special regimes basically introduced through 2 routes. One, the route is through special economic zones of 4 types that exist in Uzbekistan, some of them dedicated to pharmaceuticals, medical, say industries, etc. And a second route is a sort of ad hoc industry-based route where government introduced certain privileges granted to certain underdeveloped territories or certain industries which the government wants to develop. And these are 2 rules basically. As to legal instruments, these are investment agreements, again, those which could be concluded at local level and at a higher level. So briefly, that was basically the points that I wanted to touch upon.
Thanks a lot. At this point, I will welcome Niti Batra, CEO of Joy Travels. We had a lot of talk, Vikram sir, about travel and tourism. And in fact, you also mentioned that how your family thinks. And when we were talking to Nodir and Sherzod, we were talking about how much travel needs to happen. In fact, Nodir was kind enough to say that I will travel to India. He was talking about his plans to travel to India. And we all are very excited to know, because Joy Travels is one of the prominent travels companies in India. And Niti will tell us why traveling from India to Uzbekistan is very emotionally fulfilling thing, and why for Uzbeks traveling from there to India is very fulfilling thing, and how Joy Travel will now create a dedicated theme, which we both have discussed, that our corridor will have a travel theme, which of course Niti will design it for us. Niti, all yours.
So we are running this travel agency, which is about 35 years old, and we're doing a lot of business to the Southeast Asian countries, largely, which take away the major chunk of business for Indian tourists. But now Uzbekistan and other CIS countries like Kazakhstan are picking up, and there is a lot of movement towards these countries for simple reason that there is a strong cultural connect between the 2 countries, like in Uzbekistan and India. And the close proximity of these countries, for example, let's talk about Uzbekistan. It's just about 3.5 hours away. The time difference between India and Uzbekistan is just about half an hour. And people are keen to explore this new destination because it comes with its own uniqueness. And there is no dearth of a nice accommodation in Uzbekistan. Indian food is readily available. Being there, a cultural connect. I mean, a lot of people can, Indians can really have a good time with kebabs and naans and rumali rotis that's available over there. And the Uzbeks are pretty welcoming to the Indians, which is a very big criteria for Indians to feel at home when they travel to Uzbekistan. And Bollywood, as we all know, has its presence, makes its presence felt in Uzbekistan as strongly as in a lot of other countries. Uzbeks are very, very fond of watching Bollywood. Bollywood, you can see find Bollywood numbers playing in a lot of shops and malls because it's quite popular there. And now India has a good connectivity with Uzbekistan. Tashkent being the capital city, India has 3 flights per week, and in the pipeline in 2021, tourism is going to come back with a vengeance. So we will see a lot of flights getting added up on this route to CIS countries. The number is currently about, all put together, about 18 flights per week to all CIS countries. That is going to get almost double now. And so that will increase the number of tourist efflux from India to Uzbekistan. And we will see that, Tashkent as such, being strongly culturally connected with India, the 2 main entities that we can talk about, Babur and Mirza Ghalib. They were born in Uzbekistan. Babur set up the Mughal dynasty in India, and that was, and he ruled it, and the Mughal dynasty was in power for 300 years. He conquered India after the Battle of Panipat in 1526, and henceforth the Mughal Empire was here in India. And Mirza Ghalib, he was born in 1797 and he lived in Samarkand for many years. And he came to India, and India, he has been a very respected figure, and he's regarded as a great poet, to the extent that in Jamia Millia University in India, there's a big statue of Mirza Ghalib, and a wall mural was inaugurated in January 2019 at the Mirza Ghalib Road in Nagpada locality in Mumbai. So these 2 are very respected figures, whereas India is also concerned. Regarding tourism from India to Uzbekistan, Tashkent, Samarkand, Khiva, and Bukhara, these are the popular destinations. And since accommodation is plentiful available, traveling is not difficult, the yellow cabs are plenty available, and bullet trains are there. People can take day tours. It's a good destination for backpackers as well as family travel. You can have shared rides. You can have your own private vehicle. None of them is, both come with their own experiences. You can strike conversations in your shared trip, talk about yoga, Hindi institutes, Bollywood, and
Niti, I'll just ask you something very important, because you have a great fascination for this. Just conclude by saying that if Uzbeks will come to India, of course, you talked about something about Mirza Ghalib in Jamia Millia Islamia. I was not even aware about it. I'll surely check it, because I know where he passed away, and that's behind Nizamuddin Aulia's Dargah, and it is a very small monument which is there. So just tell us, which are the must-visit cities in India for Uzbek people?
Uzbeks, when they come to India, they will like to visit Babri Masjid, Jama Masjid, Panipat Mosque, Kabuli Bagh Mosque, and the other beautiful gardens and madrasas. And apart from that, Taj Mahal, Red Fort, Qutub Minar, these are places of interest to them.
Wonderful. Thank you, Niti. Thanks a lot, because you gave a very good description about India and Uzbekistan, both for the travelers. His Excellency has joined us. We have 2 speakers left, and we'll go to them one by one. I'll come to Nodir first, and he talked about Raj Kapoor's movie, Niti, being very popular in Tashkent even now. So I heard it from Nodir only. Nodir, you will basically talk about energy, taxation part I'll leave. Just tell us, for Indian companies, because there are more than 130 people still listening to this, that what kind of Indian companies you require, and as a lawyer, how can you guide them to participate in the tenders?
Sure. Thank you very much. And I'll try to put a presentation, but it seems I cannot share. Okay, but I had a presentation to share, but it seems
You
like
just read it. You just say you're saying is better, more powerful. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the main question that I wanted to answer during this presentation is how Indian companies can enter Uzbekistan. What can they do if they want to do business in Uzbekistan? We could divide the entire answer into two groups. You can either set up a company in Uzbekistan, or you can do business in Uzbekistan without setting up a company branches. And I'll try to describe in 5 minutes all major issues to this. Setting up a legal entity. Of course, this is number one option for any company to come to Uzbekistan because it opens the entire country at all. It opens all the types of businesses that a company wishes to pursue, and it makes possible to do whatever the company wants, whatever format. And there will be no restrictions which are peculiar to other options of how they can enter Uzbekistan market. When we're talking about opening an Uzbekistan company, we'll be talking on a wide range of legal forms, but generally speaking, if we're talking about energy sector, legal form of limited liability company is the most commonly used form. It is very easy to set up in Uzbekistan, and it's very quick and fairly cheap. And it may take up to 1 week, including all post-registration requirements, to complete registration in Uzbekistan. If all documents are ready, it can take even 1 day if you have the team ready. And once you set up a company in Uzbekistan, a foreign entity can apply for licenses and start operations either as investor or EPC contractor or other. The second area, the second way how foreigners can come to Uzbekistan and work is operating without establishing a business entity, a legal entity in Uzbekistan. This is more applicable not to investors, but more applicable to one-off EPC contractors. For example, at the moment, we have large-scale energy projects, and for example, Mastab at the moment has won 3 very big tenders in solar for construction of solar plants in 3 regions of Uzbekistan, and they started already announcing their own tenders for finding EPC contractors. And if any Indian energy company comes to Uzbekistan as an EPC contractor, they may choose not to establish a legal entity, but they may choose to work either as a permanent establishment or without a permanent establishment. I will explain both. Working as a permanent establishment, it's the same as coming to Uzbekistan and doing business, a regular business activity under one contract. This contract must be long-term. By long-term, I mean 183 days during any 12 months period. Alternatively, if a foreign company has a regular or permanent place of business in Uzbekistan, this may also trigger emergence of a permanent establishment. For energy projects, usually we're talking about contracts for 2 or 3 calendar years. So for energy projects, it's quite feasible and possible for a foreign company to come without any business entities and start business from the scratch. But what are the shortcomings of the permanent establishment? First of all, there is no border between a permanent establishment and a parent company because this is the same entity. It's just a tax status only, not more. And it means that an Indian company comes to Uzbekistan, does construction works, then leaves Uzbekistan, and in between it has to declare its incomes related to this construction and pay taxes. This is what the permanent establishment in very brief is. And it has its own shortcomings, like permanent establishments cannot apply for all types of licenses. Because some types of licenses are given only to Uzbekistan registered companies. For example, construction of hazardous objects. But in the recent years, of course, the Ministry of Construction, and based on several presidential decrees, it is possible to receive licenses for non-residents, and some licenses are already being issued to non-residents, but there are restrictions, of course. You cannot compare proper business entity with a permanent establishment. The second shortcoming of a permanent establishment is just, it is emerged per contract. 1 contract, 1 PE. 2 contracts, 2 PEs. And of course, there are rules for identification of PEs, and there are separate rules for registration. But this is also a shortcoming. But the advantageous thing for permanent establishment is that a foreign company, without any hassle and without any additional administrative legal issues, it can just come to Uzbekistan, perform its business, pay taxes, and go out without any additional movements. This is a side of permanent establishment. The third option, how they can work in Uzbekistan without any registration, is working on a short-term basis. This would require no registrations at all, but there you would have some taxation in Uzbekistan. But again, between Uzbekistan and India, we have double tax treaty. There are grounds for exemptions. Well, this is a very nutshell. And of course, if we hold the next conference with a more time to discuss, we would be able to go into detail.
So this is a general overview, which is very nicely given by Ilkhom and Nodir till now. I go to the last speaker, His Excellency Sherzod, who will talk about the most important part of intellectual property rights. How Uzbekistan saves the intellectual property rights. And because this is a concern for a lot of Indian companies, with that we want to know what is the regime like. The second part he will briefly address is the opportunities for pharma sector. Sherzod, your final comments.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a great honor to speak at this webinar. My name is Sherzod Utkirkhujaev. I'm a partner at Atul Law Firm. We focus on registration and protection of IP rights in Uzbekistan. And today I want to speak about defending IP rights in Uzbekistan. Actually, I had a presentation to share, but I think the program is not allowing to share the screen, so I will be speaking generally. Uzbekistan is member of majority of international agreements, and IP sphere, while the IP sphere is quite new for Uzbek legal system, more people in business understand the importance of it day by day. But unfortunately, so do those persons who use it in bad faith. I mean, those who understand the value of IP and want to benefit from it illegally. There are few issues with IP in Uzbekistan, but I want to note that they are not exclusive for Uzbekistan. They exist everywhere, like in any other country, more or less. So one of the issues is look-alike products that are manufactured in Uzbekistan. For example, if we take pharmaceuticals sector, there were a few companies who would change a letter or two and leave the design of the drug and try to use the reputation and value of the original brand, of the original foreign brand, and consumers would be confused because honestly, consumers do not spend much time on identifying the brand. I think it's less than a second that we spend on looking at the product, and we make sure that it's the original, but we don't pay much attention to details. So lookalikes is one of the issues. Another issue with lookalike is products which are manufactured abroad, for example, in India or China, that are imported into Uzbekistan. There are some cases when two Indian brands fight with each other, in the market, one of which is the original because they registered the brand earlier, and the other one is also the Indian brand, but it's considered as lookalike. We have the cases from China, from India. Actually speaking, we assume that some of these products are not available anywhere else except Uzbekistan, and we don't exclude that Uzbek companies ordered these products. The last but not least is the brand theft. I mean, stealing the brand. So, for example, local entities or persons with bad intention can register a brand which is famous abroad, but not present in Uzbekistan in the hope that they will sell this brand in the future once they enter the market. We had several cases on this issue, and the final goal of these persons is making money. Because if the brand is entering the market, it will need to buy this brand, buy these IP rights, which is lost in Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan has been doing very great in IP sphere for the last 5 years. If we compare the situation with IP like 5 years ago and now, the difference is obviously huge. The Uzbek IP agency was completely reorganized. It was given a new set of authorities and rights, which help the real brand owners fight against counterfeits, lookalikes, etc. Similarly, Uzbek courts gained significant experience in IP sphere for the last 5 years, and Uzbek government is planning to establish a specialized IP court, which will be doing with IP issues exclusively, and this shows us how important the IP sphere is for Uzbek government, and Uzbek governments to enter WTO and the Eurozone zones will make the government to improve this sphere even further.
Thanks a lot, Sherzod, for your warm comments. And I know we need a very detailed legal conclave to cover our presentation kind of thing, which we normally do, because it was a more opening up of a big sector. So, but thanks